to Couch Casual, where today we are going to continue yet again our division preview series. And before we get into this NFC East preview, as always, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and also in the comment section let me know what you agree with or disagree with. And also, before we get into this, I will be putting a link to the full playlist of all the previews we've done so far in the description if you want to check out. We've currently done all 4 AFC divisions, and if you want to check those, you can check the playlist out in the description. But we will quickly now move on to the NFC East preview for this upcoming season. The first team we have is New York Giants. This is the team I do predict finishing last in the division. I could see them having a bit more wins than I actually projected, but let's quickly get into their depth chart. First, we have on offense, of course, the main story with this Giants offense is Daniel Jones. Is Daniel Jones capable of being a franchise guy? Probably not. They paid him a ton of money. They're currently stuck with that massive contract with no really way to get out of it except for just letting it expire. But this isn't necessarily a hot take or anything, but I do not think Daniel Jones is the guy, and I do think he does hold them back substantially. He's not a bad quarterback by any means. He's not an awful quarterback by any means, but I do think they're not going to go much further with him at quarterback. They probably will look to draft a guy in this year's draft. I'm pretty sure it's a pretty deep class of quarterbacks. Like, there's good guys you can get early in the first, middle of the first, and late in the first. I'm not sure. Haven't done too much work on the draft class or research into it, but they could get a quarterback in this next draft to be the future and hopefully replace Daniel Jones. But the rest of the offense, it's honestly not awful. Devin Singletary obviously is a major downgrade from Saquon, but just in and of itself, Devin Singletary is a solid running back, a serviceable one. Obviously not Saquon, but he can play good running back for you. Receiver core, obviously they drafted Malik Neighbors in the first round, who can really be that yards after catch, get him in space, and then he'll do the rest type of receiver that can help Daniel Jones or the future replacement. Darius Slayton's just been a quality, solid guy his whole career. Wan'Dale Robinson, he hasn't been very productive so far in his career, but I do like what I see from Wan'Dale Robinson at times. And then you also have Jalen Hyatt, who is just a really fast, field-stretching receiver who could help out a guy like Malik Neighbors. But the receiver core, it's not good, but they have young pieces, so it could be good in the future, which isn't always a terrible thing. Tight end-wise, Daniel Bellinger. I do like Daniel Bellinger as a tight end. I did have him as my breakout player for the Giants. And then their O-line obviously was not the greatest last year. You do have Andrew Thomas, who is one of the best tackles in football. Evan Neal has had a rocky start to his career. The interior line needs work. Illuminor, I'm confident, or I'm pretty sure he's a pretty solid guard. But outside of Andrew Thomas, they don't have much of the O-line. The offense, I do think personally, will not be the best. Your receiver core isn't great. It's young and promising, but right now it's not great. And your O-line is just okay. And Daniel Jones is not the best quarterback in my opinion, so I do think their offense will be towards the bottom of the league. However, we move over to the defense, where I do think they will have a much better season. And it obviously starts up front. This front seven that they've built this offseason is arguably they have one of the better D-lines in football. When you look at edge rushers and D tackles, you have Dexter Lawrence, one of the best D tackles in football, arguably the best D tackle in football. He's 100%. I'd say he's top 3, but if you want to disagree top 3, you can't have him outside the top 5. So you have him there establishing the D tackle position. And then on the edge, you have Brian Burns, who you acquired in a trade, who is a young, productive. You paid him a lot of money, but sometimes you have to just pay money to get good players. He's a good player. He can easily get double-digit sacks. And then on the opposite side of him, you have Kayvon Thibodeau, who is another very good very good young and up-and-coming edge rusher, who they drafted not too long ago, who can also give you double-digit sacks as well. And then the linebacker core, not only is their front seven or their D line really good, but their front seven is really good as well. When you have Bobby Okereke at linebacker, who he's just a tackle machine. Isaiah Simmons has obviously had his up and downs when he was in Arizona, but he still could potentially tap into some potential there. So their front seven is very good, which is why I think their defense can be very good and kind of keep that team afloat with that offense. And their secondary, it's definitely not as good as their front seven, but I don't hate their secondary. Deonte Banks, I think, is a really good corner. Tyler Nubin, I kind of liked him coming out of, I think he went to Minnesota. I'm not sure, but I liked him out of college. Jason Pinnock is a quality safety. So their secondary isn't terrible, but that front seven really helps their defense. However, they are in a tough division, and I do think they finish last place at a 5-12 record is where I have the Giants finishing this year. I do have the MVP actually going to Brian Burns. I know I mentioned Dexter Lawrence being one of the best D tackles in football, and Brian Burns just has a really good pass rusher. But I wouldn't be surprised if Brian Burns has like 13 sacks, because when he was in Carolina, he had nobody really outside of Derek Brown, who's not necessarily a sack guy. He was constantly getting all the attention. Now he has Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence to take the attention off him. I think he can have a very good season. Maybe not $30 million. I think that's what he's getting paid, but a very good year. So I also have him winning Defensive Player of the Year as well. And then Rookie of the Year, I have it going to Malik Nabers. And I also, this is one of the first time I only had 2 people win all 4 awards. But I have Malik Nabers also winning Offensive Player of the Year. I think he could have a very good rookie season. When you look at him, Wan'Dale Robinson, Slayton, Jones, Singletary, and Bellinger, I think Malik Nabers will have the best statistical season out of all those guys. So I'm very high on Malik Nabers, and I think he could end up being the best player on the Giants offense, which will then ultimately land him as their best rookie. Now we move on to the team I have finishing third in the NFC East, and that is, probably no surprise, is the Washington Commanders. I don't see them beating the Cowboys or Eagles, at least in terms of having better record. Potentially soon, though. Let's look at why that could be the case with their very young, promising team, yet filled with a lot of veterans that they spent money on this offseason. So looking at the offseason, they obviously, in the first round, they took Jaden Daniels, their Heisman winner draft pick. I like Jaden Daniels, very accurate quarterback. Can obviously add a rushing element to it. So obviously you're gonna have your ups and downs with a rookie quarterback, especially. Well, no, they have a good system, I think, around him, and the players are pretty decent as well. I don't know. I think I mentioned this with like Drake May and Bo Nix. I think Jaden Daniels is up there in terms of cast. I think he might. I would personally say he has like maybe the 3rd best supporting cast out of the rookies, compared to Bo Nix, May, McCarthy, Caleb. I think Caleb obviously has the best, and then I think it's JJ McCarthy, who might not even play, and then I think it's Jaden Daniels, because when you look at the running back position, yes, Eckler is not the same running back he was. You saw the clip, I think it was against Green Bay, where he was just so slow, but he can still give you, I still believe he can give you good production as a receiving back, and he can still give you decent production on the ground, and he doesn't have to be that guy, because they have Brian Robinson also in that running back room, who I really like Brian Robinson. So I think him and Eckler could be a very good dynamic duo out of that backfield to help Jaden Daniels. Now the receiver core, it is young, and it does have promise. just like the Giants receiver core, but it does have things to work on. Obviously, you have Terry McLaurin. There's nothing that Terry McLaurin has to do to get better, to be honest. I mean, obviously, he can get better, but he's a potential receiver one, borderline receiver two type guy. He's obviously really good. Dealt with terrible quarterback play his whole career. So you have him. You have Jahan Dotson, who I think is a very good young receiver. They drafted Luke McCaffrey, Christian McCaffrey's brother. And then outside of that, I mean, you have Diami Brown and Olamide Zacchaeus. But those three receivers are not awful. They can get the job done, and they are young and they can develop. And then at tight end, they obviously picked up Zach Ertz, he's definitely getting up there in age, but he still can give you decent production. And they drafted Ben Sano, I think, out of Kansas State. I really liked him. I couldn't decide if I liked him or Jatavian Sanders as that sort of tight end number 2 in the draft, but I really like Ben Sano. And then their O-line, they spent money on it. They got Nick Allegretti from the Chiefs. They got Tyler Biadasz, I think that's how you pronounce it, from the Cowboys. They still have Sam Cosmi, Andrew Wiley. It's a decent O-line group. I think their offense can be about average, slightly below average, especially with, the rookie quarterback ups and downs. But I actually don't hate their offense, but where they spent a lot of their money is on defense. This is a completely different defense than last year. I think they signed Dante Fowler. They signed Dorrance Armstrong. They signed Frankie Louvu. They signed Bobby Wagner and Jeremy Chin. They're good players. Like, Dorrance Armstrong is a solid edge rusher. Dante Fowler's a solid edge rusher. You have obviously the very good D-tackle duo of Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen, and you also draft Johnny Newton, who is a very good deep tackle. I really liked him out of Illinois. Frankie Louvu has been very good over his last 2 to 3 seasons. Mainly when he went to the Panthers, he really sort of broke out. And he kind of does it all. He gets sacks, he can get some interceptions every once in a while, he can get tackles, fumbles. And you pair him with a veteran like Bobby Wagner and also Jamin Davis. I really like their linebacking core. And also their secondary. Emmanuel Forbes, obviously, we've seen the picture of his small frame, and he did have a rocky start. It is hard, though, to be a rookie corner in the NFL. Benjamin St-Juste, they have opposite of him. I like him. I think he's pretty solid. Jeremy Chin, picked him as my breakout player for the Commanders because he had a very good start to his career. And then he sort of just stopped getting used on the Panthers, which is very interesting. They just didn't play him. And now he's going into a system where Dan Quinn is on the staff. He might actually be the head coach now that I think about it. But very good defensive mind. And I think he can really tap into that potential with Jeremy Chin. And overall, this defense with their front seven and their up-and-coming and promising secondary, I think it'd be a pretty good defense. But just like the Giants, I do think it'll be a rough season, especially at the quarterback position with a rookie. I do see them finishing with a 5-12 record. I could easily see this being 6 or 7 if Jaden Daniels does a CJ Stroud. This could easily be 6 or 7 wins. But see, what CJ Stroud did was not normal. So if anything normal happens, that's when I could see him winning in that 5-win range. MVP, I didn't want to give it to Jaden Daniels, so I gave it to Terry McLaurin. He's the only real consistent piece on this offense that isn't aging. And he could finally have a really accurate quarterback throwing the ball as well. So I had him winning. I had him being their most valuable player, and I also then gave him offensive player as well. I could see him easily getting 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns. And defensive player of the year, I actually went with Frankie Louvu. This might be a biased pick because I am a Panther fan. So, could be very biased. However, I've seen what he's done in Carolina. He's going to a good defensive system. I could see him having a great year. And then Rookie of the Year, I decided to give it to Jaden Daniels. the obvious pick. I don't know if a guy like Ben Sano is going to play enough, or even Mike Sainer still, who they got at corner, who I also liked. And I think Jaden Daniels can have a very solid rookie year for a quarterback, so I gave him Rookie of the Year. But now we sort of move into that next tier, that first tier, S tier, A tier, whatever, of this division. And the first team up is the Eagles. I do have them finishing second in this division. It's very close between them and the Cowboys. It's honestly a coin toss who's going to have the better season. But I have the Eagles finishing second. So obviously, there's not much to talk about the Eagles. You have Jalen Hurts, you had Saquon Barkley, one of the better running backs in football, behind a very good O-line. I know they lost Jason Kelsey, but you still have Mailata, Dickerson, Lane Johnson. Cam Jurgens is a solid replacement. A.J. Brown, receiver. Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert. Even C.J. Uzomah is a solid backup tight end. But again, there's honestly not much to say about this Eagles offense outside of Saquon coming in and Jason Kelsey leaving. It's pretty much the same offense. They're going to be good. There's not much to say. Defensively, there's a little bit of a difference on the defensive side. Their front seven took a little bit of a hit. They lost Brandon Graham. He also retired. And they lost Hassan Reddick as well. They did replace him with Bryce Huff, who I think is a very good edge rusher. Your linebacker core, they added Devin White. I honestly forgot they signed Devin White. You have Devin White, Nakobe Dean, Nolan Smith is a solid linebacker core, and their secondary is where it could be a little interesting this year because Slay and Bradbury, when they first were together on the Eagles, played very good, and then they've sort of Bradbury especially has definitely taken a step back in the last few seasons, and that's why they went into this draft. They drafted Quinion Mitchell out of Toledo, liked that pick. They drafted Cooper DeJean out of Iowa, another pick that I liked, and they still have Reed Blankenship. They brought back C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I think he could be a very solid secondary, and you pair that with the linebacker core with Devin White, and their D-line, which still has Jordan Davis. You still have Jalen Carter. Again, just like their offense is going to most likely be very good, their defense will also most likely be very good. And that's why I have them finishing with a 12-5 record. I do have MVP going to Jalen Hurts. Not much to say about that. He's going to get his who knows if the tush push is going to work, but he'll get his rushing touchdowns regardless. He'll put up the numbers. There's not much to say about that. Offensive Player of the Year. It was really a toss-up between Saquon, A.J. Brown, and Devonta Smith as well. But I think Saquon behind that Eagles O-line. I know they lost Jason Kelsey. It's still a very good O-line. I could see Saquon Barkley having an incredible season in Philly. Defensive Player of the Year, I actually went with Jalen Carter. I think he'll really break out and emerge into a top-tier D tackle after this season. And then Rookie of the Year, I actually gave it to Cooper DeJean. It was between him or Quinion Mitchell. But as someone who goes to Iowa, I put a little bias in this one and decided to give it to Cooper DeJean. Because how can you not like Cooper DeJean? And that is it for the Eagles, which means the team I have finishing first is the Dallas Cowboys. Now, this is just regular season. This isn't playoffs. We all know the Cowboys' history in the playoffs as of late. This is just regular season, and whether you hate no matter how much you hate the Cowboys, you can't deny that they are a great regular season team. Just like the Eagles, offensively, there's not much to talk about. It's pretty much the same. Their O-line, you have rookie Tyler Guyton. They did take some hits on the O-line. They lost Tyron Smith, Tyler Biadasz, but you still have Zach Martin, Tyler Smith. They drafted Tyler Guyton. Offensively, obviously, you still have Dak, who will still put up very good numbers. They did lose Tony Pollard, and they replaced him with Zeke, which is interesting because outside of Zeke, you have Rico Dowdle and Deuce Vaughn. So the running back room is shaky. But receiver, you have CeeDee Lamb, one of the best receivers in football. Brandon Cooks is still a quality receiver. I like Kevontae Turpin. And then Jake Ferguson is a good tight end as well. Again, not much to say offensively. There's a little bit, obviously, with their slightly changed O-line and their running back room. But, again, not much to say. It's going to be a good offense with Dak and Brandon and CeeDee Lamb. And same thing defensively, not much to say here. You get Trevon Diggs back after his season-ending injury. You obviously have Deron Bland, Malik Hooker, Donovan Wilson, great secondary. D-line, it's pretty much just DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons, but that's honestly all you need. All you really need is Micah Parsons, and you should be fine. And then linebacker is questionable. Eric Kendricks, I don't know how good he can still be. But again, there's not much to talk about with this Cowboys team. It's relatively the same. They're going to be a good team, and that's why I have them actually tying with the Eagles at 12-5 as well. But based on how I predicted the schedule, the tiebreaker went to Dallas. MVP, I do have going to Dak Prescott. He put up MVP numbers last year. I don't see why he can't do it, especially on a contract year. I don't see why he won't put up very good numbers. And speaking of very good numbers and why they wouldn't not put them up, Offensive Player of the Year, CeeDee Lamb. Defensive Player of the Year, Micah Parsons. Not much to say about those two. One of the best receivers in football, arguably the best defensive player, no matter what position in football, Micah Parsons. They're just elite players. And then Rookie of the Year, I did give it to Tyler Guyton. I think he's set up in a situation to just perform as a rookie. It's hard being a rookie tackle, especially rookie left tackle, which he might be playing. But I think he's set up to actually have a very good, solid season for a rookie tackle. So that's why I have him getting Rookie of the Year, and I also couldn't really see anybody else on that Cowboys team. That's a rookie getting enough playing time. And then that's where we get to the final division standings for the NFC East. Number 1, Cowboys at 12-5, Eagles at second place, also 12-5, and then third and fourth is the Commanders at Giants, both finishing at 5-12. And that will conclude my NFC East preview for this up-and-coming season. As always, let me know in the comment section what you agree with, what you disagree with. Make sure you leave a like. And also, again, check out the playlist in the description for the other division previews we've done so far. And also, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And I will see you guys with another video. Peace.